Hello, everyone. Welcome to April 1st afternoon devotional and Bible study. Today, we're going to be reading through Jesus is Calling for today and continuing our journey through Holy Week with Matthew chapter 22. So without further ado, let's jump right into it with Jesus is Calling for today. April. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. Proverbs 3:6. April 1st. I'm calling you to a life of constant communion with me. Basic training includes learning to live above your circumstances, even while interacting on that clattered plane of life. You yearn for a simplified lifestyle so that your communication with me can be uninterrupted. But I challenge you to relinquish the fantasy of an uncluttered world. Accept each day just as it comes and find me in the midst of it all. Talk with me about every aspect of your day, including your feelings. Remember that your ultimate goal is not to control or fix everything around you. It is to keep communing with me. A successful day is one in which you have stayed in touch with me, even if many things remain undone at the end of the day. Do not let your to-do list, written or mental, become an idol directing your life. Instead, ask my spirit to guide you moment by moment. He will keep you close to me. And that was inspired by 3 different sections of the Bible. Pray continually. 1 Thessalonians 5:17. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will make your path straight. Proverbs 3:6. And then lastly, since we live by the Spirit, let us keep in step with the Spirit. Galatians 5:25. I like that a successful day being one in which we stay in communion with God. I think that's really important. And sorry for the weird beeps. My fire alarm, smoke alarm has let me know that the battery is getting low, so I need to change that today. All right. Now, let's continue on with Holy Week. So, thus far, we're on 22 today. Thus far, we have had Jesus kind of predicting his death. We've had Jesus come in to a ton of celebration. The people all over were going crazy for him, and then he went and he flipped the tables that were getting in the way of people being able to buy their salvation. And the religious leaders challenged him, and he challenged the religious leaders and their power. That's going to continue as we continue the Holy Week, as Jesus continued to challenge, and eventually, well, he already kind of has people wanting to kill him, but we'll get to that. So, Matthew 22, parable of the great feast. Jesus also told other parables. He said, the kingdom of heaven can be illustrated by the story of a king who prepared a great wedding feast for his son. When the banquet was ready, he sent his servants to notify those who were invited, but they all refused to come. So he sent other servants to tell them, the feast has been prepared, the bulls and fattened cattle have been killed, and everything is ready. Come to the banquet. But the guests he had invited ignored them and went their own way, one of his farm, another to his business. Others seized his messengers and insulted them and killed them. The king was furious and sent out his army to destroy the murderers and burn their town. And he said to his servants, the wedding feast is ready, and the guests I invited aren't worthy of the honor. Now go to the street corners and invite everyone you see." So the servants brought in everyone they could find, the good and bad alike. The banquet hall was full with guests. But when the king came in to meet the guests, he noticed a man who wasn't wearing the proper clothes for a wedding. "Friend," he asked, "how is it that you are here without wedding clothes?" The man had no reply. Then the king said to his asides, "Bind his hands and feet and throw him into the utter darkness, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are called, but few are chosen." Taxes for Caesar. Then the Pharisees met together to plot how to trap Jesus into saying something for which he could be arrested. They sent some of their disciples along with the supporters of Herod to meet with him. "Teacher," they said, "we know how honest you are. You teach the way of God truthfully. You are impartial and don't play favorites. Now tell us what you think about this. Is it right to pay taxes to Caesar or not?" But Jesus knew their evil motives. "You hypocrites," he said. "Why are you trying to trap me? Here, show me the coin used for the tax." When they handed him a Roman coin, he asked, "Whose picture and title are stamped on it?" "Caesar's," they replied. "Well then," he said, "give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and give to God what belongs to God." His reply amazed them, and they went away. Discussion about resurrection. That same day, Jesus was approached by the Sadducees, religious leaders who say there is no resurrection from the dead. They posed this question. "Teacher," Moses said, "if a man dies without children, his brother should marry the widow and have a child who will carry on the brother's name. Well, suppose there were 7 brothers. The oldest one married and then died without children, so his brother married the widow. But the second brother also died. Then the third brother married her, and this continued with all 7 of them. Last of all, the woman also dies. Tell us, whose wife will she be in the resurrection? For all 7 were married to her." Jesus replied, "Your mistake is that you don't know the scriptures, and you don't know the power of God. For when the dead rise, they will neither marry nor be given in marriage. In this respect, they will be like angels in heaven. But now, as to whether there will be a resurrection of the dead, haven't you read about this in scriptures? Long after Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob had died, God said, 'I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob.' So he is the God of the living, not the dead." When the crowds heard him, they were astonished at his teaching, the most important commandment. But the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees with his reply. They met together to question him again. One of them, an expert in religious law, tried to trap him in this question. "Teacher, which is the most important commandment in the law of Moses?" Jesus replied, "You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. A second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. The entire law and all the demands of the prophets are based in these 2 commandments. Whose son is the Messiah?" Then, surrounded by Pharisees, Jesus asked them a question. "What do you think about the Messiah? Whose son is he?" They replied, "He is the son of David," Jesus responded. "Then why does David, speaking under the inspiration of the Spirit, call the Messiah my Lord? For David said, 'The Lord said to my Lord, sit in the place of honor at my right hand, until I humble your enemies beneath your feet.' Since David called the Messiah my Lord, how can the Messiah be his son?" No one could answer him. And after that, no one dared ask him any more questions. May God add a blessing to the reading of his word. There's a lot in here, a ton to unpack. Overall story, we're seeing the Sadducees and the Pharisees and these different kind of religious groups and affiliations that are all part of the Jewish faith right now. We might call them denominations. There's the evangelical church, there's the Protestant church, there's the um, you know um, Anglican church, the Catholic church would even play into this, and these different approaches to what it might mean to be a Christian, what it might mean to follow Jesus. At this point in time, there's like, okay, well, we're split between there's like a resurrection of the dead and there's not a resurrection of the dead. And the Sadducees go up and they challenge him and get silenced. And the Pharisees go, okay, yeah, but now we're going to silence this troublemaker. And then they also get silenced. Then, um, you know, the Pharisees, they go, well, yeah, okay, you might have got us on that one. But what about this? And then Jesus once again goes, no. And the religious leaders and the rulers and like the people in charge of everything, they were just getting stonewalled every single time. Which you see them going like, they're not quite at necessarily murder yet, but they're like, we want to get this guy arrested. So let's get him to talk against the Roman Empire and say that we shouldn't have to pay taxes, because surely he would be against paying taxes because it disproportionately affects the Jewish people because we're subjugated, and if he's trying to be our king, he's going to want to stop that. So let's get him to talk against the Roman Empire so we can get him arrested. And Jesus goes, like, give to Caesar's what Caesar's. His face is on it, but you better be given to God what's God's. And it was something that they weren't expecting, kind of blew their minds. And it's something to remember today, right? Like, a lot of people are super against taxes, but without them, one, you can look at our neighbors down south and they pay a lot less taxes, like, to the government, but for their own personal care, they pay upwards of 40, if not higher percent of their wage for what our taxes pay for us. Whether that's roads, like other infrastructure, services, health care, like the list goes on and on and on. And yes, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of corruption in politics. There's a lot of other corruption and stuff, but like, our taxes do serve a purpose, and they help us in Canada, especially, look after the least of these, which it's a good thing. Taxes in and of themselves aren't necessarily evil. And during this time, there was still that corruption. Jesus said, okay, give to Caesar's what's Caesar's. Nowadays, there's a picture of the Queen or a prime minister, their government representations. And Jesus would say, give to the government what's the government's. I think that would be the today translation of that. I might be wrong, but that's what I think the today translation of that would be. But give to God what is God's. Then the parable of the great feast. Once again, he's talking to Jewish people, and he's like, hey, so there's a bunch of these Jewish people that are rejecting me, and like what we talked about yesterday, the tax collectors and the prostitutes are going to be welcomed in. They're going to be, so we have this wedding feast, and it's kind of made for the Jewish people, and they're coming in, or they're invited, and they don't want to come in. So then God goes outside of the Israelite nation, and he starts inviting people from other tribes and other areas in, and a lot of them are accepting things, but then you have other people that are sneaking in that are not dressed right. And I interpret that to mean people that are showing up to church but have no relationship with God, that want to serve their political agenda, that would just want to fit in, that just want to, like, there's not really that honesty and truth. They want to perform and look good to people. That that willingness to try to actually, celebrate the marriage in this thing isn't really there. Um, that's kind of my interpretation of it. I've heard many other ways. There are a lot of other ways of interpreting it. Um, yeah, we talked about the destruction, the discussion about resurrection. The next part here, the most important commandment, like the 10 Commandments, all get summed up with love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your all your soul, and all your mind. That's the first and greatest commandment, but the second is equally important. So he does put them in an order, but he says they're equal in importance. Love your neighbor as yourself. Um, and I think that's a key thing, like to love love your neighbor as yourself. That's the law of the Old Testament. But there is a section, and this is something that got pointed out to me this year, um, and something that like I never really made the connection and the differences when Jesus didn't come to abolish the law, but he came to fulfill it. And now we're entering into this new covenant after what Jesus does on the cross. And Jesus doesn't call us to love our neighbors as ourselves, but to love our neighbors as he loved them. And that is a different thing. Because a lot of people are like, oh, well, I don't really love myself. I hate myself. I'm depressed. I'm whatever. So then move beyond that and move towards how did Jesus look towards our neighbors, towards his neighbors. Not something that we can look forward to. So if you feel like you don't love yourself, that you don't care about yourself, and then yeah, then let's start looking at our neighbors through the eyes of Jesus. And I thought that was an interesting new way of looking at it, and it is scripturally based. I forget where it is in the Bible, so feel free to leave a comment below if you know where it is. I might do that myself. Um, and then there's that whole bit of Jesus basically laying down, like, yeah, not only is there the resurrection of the dead, but like, I am the Messiah, even though I am. Well, 1 second, let me go back to that. The whose son is the Messiah? Um, yeah, that idea that of not only the resurrection, but that God is a God of the living, meaning that there is a life after this, and Jesus lays out the fact that there is a life after this life. This is not all that there is. If you feel like there is something more, we just saw Jesus pulling the curtain saying, yes, there is something more. That's what I read in that. And also with that, like emphasizing, no, there is a resurrection of the dead. So it's interesting. It gets into some really interesting places the more that you investigate and look into that. And I'd say it's a worthwhile thing. But let me pray and let you guys get on with your cold, lockdown threatened Thursday. AJC, awesome Jesus Christ, I thank you so much for all the ways that you love us and that you care about us. I thank you that there is a life after this one, that this isn't all that there is to life, but there is something after. There is a resurrection of the dead, that you love us and you'll guide us and you'll direct us. There's a couple of things in here that I know can get interpreted in a couple different ways, and I definitely don't have all the answers, and I have my opinions, and I very easily could be wrong, Lord. So if any of my interpretations fall short of the truth, let that be forgotten quickly by everyone that's participating, maybe even by myself, Lord, as I lean on you to guide and correct and help me grow and help me gain these understandings. I thank you that we can get into your word, that we can read your words translated for our eyes and our ears. And sometimes things fall short, metaphors get lost. The poetic nature of what you say sometimes can be lost. You told jokes, and it doesn't read as a joke in English, but it does. You were a punny person, um, and Lord, help us to get to know you better. Help us get to see how you love others, and let that help us to love ourselves and help us to love our neighbors. Help us to learn to love you with all our heart, mind, strength, and soul. And when others challenge us, help us to lean on you for understanding and knowledge and wisdom. Help us to see through false teachers and people making mistakes, but also to pray for them, Lord. And Lord, as our Ontario government prepares to do something that is going to be difficult once again, with the going back into gray zone, I lift them up and I pray that we can have ears to hear. We're tired of having over a year of this pandemic, Lord, but help us to see beyond our circumstances and help us to see who it is that we're helping. Help us, Lord, those that have not been able to work for the last year, that are feeling depressed, that are feeling isolated, that are feeling lonely, that are feeling alone, that are feeling worthless. Lord, you value us and you love us so much more, and this too will pass. Help us to grasp on to that, and that no one feeling will last forever. I heard about a tragedy out in Nova Scotia, Lord, and I lift up everyone that's connected to that. And Lord, you are awesome. Meet us in our grief and in our mess. Help us to know that you love us despite whatever situation we may be in. You are awesome, Lord. Thank you. All right. Amen. And I'll see you guys tomorrow for Good Friday. I might have to make a little bit of a jump in what we're talking about, because I didn't quite get there. I didn't plan out every day. I was just like, I want to start with the foreshadowing. So, as I'm reading through things, Jesus speaks about the future. Like, these are good things, but I think we might have to jump to 26 tomorrow. So we'll skip a couple days, or maybe we'll just do a longer one. I don't know. I might even go and just grab my cross and go for a walk and shoot it that way tomorrow. It was cold last year. It'll be cold again tomorrow. But yeah, Good Friday. It's a powerful day. This is a powerful week, and this is one of the times when I will admit that I'm feeling a little less like I'm on a spiritual high this week. But sitting down, being able to read through this with you has been one of the highlights. So thank you for coming in. Thank you for spending time. Have a fantastic day. Enjoy the long weekend. God bless.